the silent stillness of the New Mexico desert, there stood a small white trailer, unremarkable from a distance, a relic of sun-scorched days and cold, endless nights. But those who dared step inside would find themselves in a place where nightmares weren't just born, they thrived. Locals spoke of a man who lived on the edge of Elephant Butte Lake, a man who moved through their quiet town like a shadow. He kept to himself, but there was something about his eyes, dark, empty, as if they stared right through the world and into something none of us could ever comprehend. When the truth finally emerged, it wasn't whispered rumors or fleeting suspicions. It was a revelation so chilling, it felt as though the desert itself had exhaled a long-held breath of dread. What lay inside that trailer was not a home, but a chamber meticulously crafted for one purpose: torture beyond imagination. This is the story of David Parker Ray, the man who built his own private hell and called it the Toy Box. David Parker Ray was born on November 6, 1939, in Belen, New Mexico. His childhood was turbulent. His father visited rarely and reportedly gave him magazines depicting bondage and sadomasochism when he was still in his teens. These early influences ignited Ray's obsession with domination and control. As he grew older, his dark fantasies evolved into carefully planned rituals. Ray worked as a mechanic and was considered polite, even quiet, by those who knew him casually. But inside his mind, he was engineering a perfect environment to fulfill his monstrous desires. By the early 1990s, Ray settled near Elephant Butte Lake. On his property, he transformed a white cargo trailer into what he chillingly called his toy box. The trailer's exterior gave no hint of what horrors waited inside. But once the door shut behind a victim, they were trapped in a soundproof chamber stocked with homemade torture devices, surgical tools, and an arsenal of ropes, chains, and pulleys. The walls were adorned with detailed diagrams of human anatomy, showing precisely where to inflict pain for maximum suffering. Notes describing his methods were tacked alongside these drawings. Every inch of the toy box was designed to strip away hope and humanity from whoever entered it. Though he lived in near seclusion, David Parker Ray did not act alone. His girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, played a crucial role in his crimes. She helped lure victims with offers of rides, or by pretending to befriend women in bars. Once Ray had a target in his sights, he would use Hendy's cooperation and his own manipulative charm to get them alone. From there, he employed powerful sedatives to incapacitate his victims. Drugs like sodium pentothal or phenobarbital left the women groggy, disoriented, and vulnerable. When they awoke, they would find themselves chained inside the toy box, the white trailer now transformed into their worst nightmare. Ray had a ritual for his victims. He would play a recorded message through speakers in the trailer, a tape he had carefully crafted over years. In it, Ray's voice calmly explained to the terrified women that they were now his captives. He detailed in clinical, matter-of-fact language what they could expect, describing the torture and training he intended to inflict. The message stripped away any last hope they might have clung to, forcing them to confront the reality of their imprisonment. Ray believed psychological domination was as important as physical torture. By informing victims of their fate in such a cold, detached manner, he sought to break their spirits before he laid a hand on them. Inside the toy box, investigators later found an array of restraints, including chains bolted to walls and a gynecological table modified with straps. Victims were often bound in positions that left them completely exposed and unable to move. Ray took pride in his homemade devices, many of which he crafted to prolong his victims' suffering. His collection included whips, clamps, syringes, and electrical equipment. Diagrams showing techniques for inflicting pain or causing paralysis were posted alongside detailed anatomical charts. These were not impulsive acts of violence. They were carefully planned and rehearsed performances of cruelty. Authorities believed that over decades, Ray may have tortured and possibly killed as many as 60 women, though the true number will never be known. Some victims who survived were released with no memory of their ordeal, the drugs wiping away the horrors they endured. Others were never found at all. Ray hinted to Hendy and other accomplices that he disposed of bodies by feeding them to wild animals or dumping remains in the lake, ensuring no evidence could be recovered. These confessions were chilling, but impossible to fully corroborate without physical proof. The nightmare continued until March 22, 1999, when one woman shattered David Parker Ray's illusion of control. Cynthia Vigil, a 22-year-old woman Ray had kidnapped and tortured for 3 days, seized a chance to escape when Ray accidentally left her chained but unattended while arguing with Cindy Hendy. Despite her injuries and wearing only a metal collar and chain, Cynthia managed to find the keys to her restraints, unlock herself, and flee the trailer. She ran naked and bleeding through the dusty roads of Elephant Butte until she found a mobile home. A startled resident took her in and called 911, sparking the beginning of the end for the Toybox Killer. Law enforcement quickly descended on Ray's property, and what they discovered inside the toy box defied belief. The white trailer contained a meticulously organized torture chamber stocked with whips, clamps, chains, saws, syringes, and dozens of homemade devices designed for inflicting pain. There were also mirrors positioned so victims would be forced to watch their own suffering. Investigators found videotapes labeled with dates and women's names or descriptions, but tragically, most of these women were never identified. It was clear Ray had been carrying out his crimes for decades without detection. In addition to the physical evidence, police recovered personal effects like jewelry and clothing from numerous unidentified women. This suggested many victims did not survive or were released with amnesia so severe they never reported the crimes. Investigators also seized Ray's audio tapes, including his infamous introductory tape, in which he told victims in chilling detail what they would endure. The tapes became crucial pieces of evidence, proving Ray's intentions beyond any doubt. Authorities spent months combing through every inch of Ray's property, searching for bodies or signs of burial, but found nothing conclusive. Ray's arrest and the gruesome discoveries inside his toy box shocked the nation. Media coverage exploded as details of his torture chamber and the possibility of dozens of missing victims came to light. The FBI issued appeals for missing persons reports from across the Southwest, hoping to match any of the personal items or faces from Ray's videotapes with unsolved disappearances. Yet despite exhaustive efforts, most identities remain a mystery. The sense of unease lingered long after Ray's capture, leaving locals and investigators alike to wonder how many people vanished without a trace into the desert's unforgiving expanse. With Cynthia Vigil's testimony and overwhelming physical evidence, prosecutors built a case against David Parker Ray. They charged him with multiple counts of kidnapping, assault, and conspiracy. Although murder charges were considered, they were never filed. Without bodies, authorities could not prove homicide beyond a reasonable doubt. Ray pleaded not guilty, and his trial began in 2000. But the legal process was fraught with complications. Mistrials, jury deadlocks, and procedural delays dragged the case out, causing further anguish for the victims and their families. Ultimately, Ray accepted a plea deal in 2001, pleading guilty to all charges related to 3 surviving victims, including Cynthia Vigil. The court sentenced Ray to 224 years in prison, a term that reflected both the severity and the sheer scale of his crimes. Cindy Hendy, who had cooperated with authorities in exchange for a lighter sentence, was sentenced to 36 years. She testified in chilling detail about Ray's methods and confessions. Hendy's release in 2019 reignited public outrage, as many believed she deserved to spend the rest of her life behind bars for her role in the torment of Ray's victims. Another accomplice, Dennis Yancey, was convicted of strangling a woman at Ray's direction and served time before being paroled in 2011. Despite exhaustive searches and multiple excavations around Ray's property and Elephant Butte Lake, no bodies were ever found. This left investigators with haunting questions. How many women did Ray actually kill? Were there other accomplices who escaped justice? Families of missing women across the Southwest still wonder if their loved ones were among Ray's victims, and some remain convinced their disappearances are connected to the toy box. The FBI's efforts to match items from the trailer to cold cases yielded few answers, leaving most victims' identities forever unknown. Ray died of a heart attack in May 2002, just a year into his sentence. His death robbed many families of the chance to confront him in court or find closure. It also meant the secrets of his crimes died with him, leaving countless unresolved mysteries buried in the sands of Elephant Butte. The toy box was dismantled and removed, but the terror it represented lingers. Even today, the thought of a quiet mechanic hiding a torture chamber in plain sight sends a shiver down the spine of anyone who dares to look into the abyss he created. Though the trailer has been dismantled and the property left to decay, the legend of the Toybox Killer endures. It compels us to remain vigilant, to look beyond the surface, and to remember that true evil often hides where we least expect it. As we confront the darkness in stories like Ray's, we also recognize the resilience of those who fight to survive it, and the need to shine light on every shadow to prevent such horrors from happening again. If your pulse burned at the edge of the abyss, like and subscribe. Eyes up, Seeker. The night holds no secrets from us.